Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer, I am one of the co-hosts of Constructive Criticism, and today, instead of a weekly deck tech, I'm actually going to look at 3 Explorer decks that I've been working on and talk to you about them really quick. So, with that being said, let's jump right in. Alright everybody, and here we are with Mono Blue Spirits coming up first. This is a deck that I personally have been playing in Pioneer. I own a copy of it, so it's pretty easy for me to just sleeve up and play. I just played a similar deck to this, not this exact list because this is Explorer, but played a similar deck at a 1K plus, took top 4, and I think the deck is surprisingly strong, and I'll kind of talk about some of the things that you lose, some of the things that you gain. Well, not really gain. You mostly lose in Explorer. But I'll talk about the deck just really quickly. But don't forget to check out our sponsor over at gglehi.com. And you can use the link in the description to let them know that we sent you. It'll push them a cookie and let them know that it was from us. That being said, let's go over the deck really quick. We have 4 Ascendant Spirit, 4 Curious Obsession, 4 Siren Storm Tamer, 4 Spectral Sailor. We've got 1 Spell Pierce and 4 Geistlight Snare. We've got 4 Rattle Chains, 4 Shacklegeist, 4 Supreme Phantom, 2 Spectral Adversary, 2 Brazen Borrower, 1 Icon of Ancestry, 18 Snow-Covered Island, 1 Otawara, and 3 Faceless Havens in the main. I'll kind of go over this deck really quickly and break it down by sections here. The Siren Storm Tamer is obviously replacing Mausoleum Wanderer. Is it worse? Absolutely. Do you want 8 flyers that cost 1 mana for your Curious Obsession? Yes. Yes, you do. And want might not even be the right word. I tried playing this deck with some other cards, including, other options at Spirit. There is another 1 mana Spirit it's the Lantern one that you can bring back for 3 mana creature flying. That's fine. You do it sometimes. But I think that really one of the things that Mausoleum Wanderer offers is interaction in a lot of ways. Well, the clock is helpful. The flying is helpful. You need to be able to protect some of your other things. And Siren Storm Tamer allows you to do that. So that's kind of the replacement there. Outside of that, the main deck is pretty similar. The only real changes that I made from my main deck outside of that, after a ton of testing, playing tons of games with lots of different spirits, is I got a Spell Pierce for a Spectral Adversary. I totally think that this Spell Pierce, or that this adversary, could be another Icon of Ancestry. I think it could be kind of a multitude of cards. I think that this is really a flex slot, and in all honesty, it's possible that this Spell Pierce is a flex slot too. I could see playing 2 Unsubstantiates in the main to have up to 4 of this, this disperse effect, boomerang effect type of thing. And, I don't know what's right. I think that Spell Pierce is not quite as good in Explorer as it is in Pioneer. Which is one of the reasons I have less of them, but I still think, just having these permission spells, these things that interact. If you kind of notice, we have 4, 8, 9, 11, really 13 plus Rattle Chains even, and Shacklegeist. So we're all the way up to 21 cards that interact with our opponents in some way. And the reason for that is you need, in this mono blue deck, for your cards to do multiple things. They can't just be doing one thing, which is one of the reasons that I find myself cutting Spell Pierce, is that while it's an interaction spell, Unsubstantiate gets to interact in kind of different ways. You know, it's also possible that you just want more card counters, right? You could just play it as a Lofty Denial, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's kind of the main deck. The sideboard for this deck is pretty simple. We've got 2 Witness Protection, 2 Lofty Denials, 2 Musical Disputes, another Faceless Haven to board in, 3 Cerulean Drake, 1 Unsubstantiate, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, and 2 Entrancing Melody. The change that you might see if you knew the list that I played at that 1K is I added Entrancing Melody and Unsubstantiate. I have less Lofty Denials. I was running 4. I found that to be too many. I just kind of wanted less of that type of interaction overall, so the Unsubstantiate got in there. The Unlicensed Hurts got cut as well, and we ended up with the 2 Entrancing Melody. I think that the Cerulean Drake, I believe this is a 3rd one. It could be a Dispute that got cut. Honestly, this card's so good in this format. If you end up playing against, like, you know, blue-red Prowess, mono-red Phoenix, like, this card just stonewalls so much stuff. I think it has gotten worse since the printing of Ledger Shredder, but it's still pretty impactful. Overall, I think that this sideboard is one that you know, has a lot of things that you can do with it. From Witness Protection and Entrancing Melody, you can interact with creatures as well as Unsubstantiate. You know, you've got a suite of counterspells and Lofty Denial and Mystical Dispute as well as Unsubstantiate that can interact with them. Cerulean Drake interacts as well. Unlicensed Hearse is, you know, it's gonna stop some of those graveyard decks. So once again, your sideboard cards, other than Mystical Dispute, really are also multifunctional outside of the counterspells. Even here's, you know, it's a hate card, but I think it's a pretty impactful one. I could see changing the sideboard depending on what you're expecting to include. Quite a few different cards, like Ether Gust is a really good one. Another Icon of Ancestry. You know, another Spell Pierce, just things that you need more of depending on how the metagame shapes out will dictate a lot on how this deck wants to sideboard. Next up is a deck that I think is pretty freaking strong, even though it probably loses the most of the decks. I mean, maybe not the most, because one of them loses a pretty important card, but loses quite a bit here, and that's Is It Prowess. I think Mono Red Prowess is quite good. I think Is It Prowess is, you know, not that far behind it. You know, you are forced to play Light Up the Stage, which, for what it's worth, Mono Red Prowess was already playing, instead of playing something along the lines of Treasure Cruise, because that card is not in the format. The other thing that you lose out on is more shock effects, so you only have the 4 in Play with Fire, but you get to play some pretty powerful cards. You know, from Ledger Shredder, Expressive Iteration being really 2 of the best cards in the format, in my opinion, as well as you just get Soulscar Mage, which is another one that is really impressive. The thing that this deck also gets to do is it gets to play Reckless Rage, which the second that I saw people popping off with that, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the deck for me. This is one of my favorite cards. And you know, while you don't have your other Prowess creature, right, you don't have your Swift Spear, so your deck is a little bit slower. You know, you still have quite a few creatures that, you know, pretty low on the curve, tons of interaction in the form of, you know, removal, as well as, you know, things to deal with, some catch-alls with Brazen Borrower. Overall, I think this deck is quite strong. It has a lot of, you know, really powerful draws. Obviously, you don't get as many of the Prowess creature into Prowess creature to just really overwhelm your opponent, but I think that there's enough good stuff here that it doesn't really matter. One of the cards that I considered adding, you know, cutting one of these Light Up the Stages for, was actually Ox of Agonis. I think that might actually be a really sick add for the deck, something that I might try out. The other thing that it loses, other than the cards that we talked about, is actually just 1 land. And I think that this Stormcarved Ghost might end up needing to be something else, but you are in fact missing the Pain lands in this deck, and it can make things a little bit more difficult. I could also see maybe instead of the Soulscar, like the creature suite, running something along the lines of Bomat Courier, or something like that, just to help your Light Up the Stages, just to get more haste damage in there. Definitely could see that being a pretty big add for the deck. The sideboard for this deck is pretty simple. You know, you've got Friar replacing Volley. You've got here's for, same thing as we talked about in the other deck. And then you've got a kind of a suite of interaction: Mystical Dispute, Spell Pierce, More Rage, Ether Gust, Burning Hands, and then kind of a Narset to even out both things in the mirror, as well as, against Phoenix. Just lots of different decks that Narset is going to be pretty powerful against, to kind of have this cheap, really hard to deal with question mark that really stops your opponent from doing what they're trying to do. The other thing this deck gets to do, though, is play Dreadhorde Arcanist, so you get to draw a ton of cards. Obviously, the other versions of this deck are not playing that, right? They're playing the Monastery Swiftspear, but I found this to be a pretty good, between that, another Ledge Shredder, and another one of these, I found it to be good enough. All right, fam, it is about time we went off. Let's talk about a deck that I worked on an inappropriate amount. It's really fun to play. And that is Green Ramp. So I'm just going to read the main deck first. We have 2 Grazer, 4 Llanowar Elves, 2 Paradise Druid, 4 Wolf Willowhaven, 3 Voracious Hydra, 2 Kiora Behemoth Beckoner, 1 Vivian Arcbow Ranger, 4 Karn, 2 Nissu Shake the World, 4 Cavalier of Thorns, 1 Golos in the main, 3 Storm the Festival, and 2 Turn Timber Symbiotes. Woo! Tongue twister. We have 2 Beseiju. That should probably be 1 after playing this deck a ton. 4 Castle Garenbrig. We have 15 Forest, 1 Blast Zone, 1 Arch of Arosga, and 1 The World Tree. So, there's a lot to talk about with this deck. I'm going to do as much as I can. I'm sure that I will miss some stuff. Our sideboard is mostly just stuff you can get. It really is. You sideboard very little with this deck. So, between Vivian grabbing creatures and Karn grabbing artifacts, you can quite literally grab every single card in your sideboard during main deck play. Ulamog, the Great Henge, God Pharaoh Statue, another Golos can be grabbed with either of them. Reclamation Stage, Lovestruck Beast even. All of these cards can be grabbed at any point during the game. You do end up sideboarding in mostly Lovestruck Beast, Elder Gargaroth, and actually sometimes you will just board in this age. You basically never board in the Golos. I could see times where you might board into the Ulamog. And then while I used to have 2 Dampening Spheres, you really only play 1 right now. This could also change. You could go back to 2 if that's a matchup that you're struggling with, just so you have more total Dampening Spheres across the board. Overall, this deck can do a lot of things. Golos can grab some of your land package. Usually it's going to grab the World Tree so that you can activate your Golos, but it can also grab the Arch of Roska and the Blast Zone. The Turn Timber Symbios can really, cast, go find your Golos or your Cavalier of Thorns, put them into play. It's really, I don't know, it's really powerful. The other thing that happens is, even if you hit one of your small creatures, like Llanowar Elves, you're able to still draw a card off of Kiora, and also, because it's additional 1/1 counters, it can still make the Voracious Hydra's 6-power creature when they ETB. Overall, the deck is pretty powerful, has a lot of game to it. There's a ton of different things that you can do. It's obviously missing some really key cards. You're missing your second elf. You're missing, the Nykthos. Because you're missing Nykthos, it kind of changes, I think, how you want to build the deck, which is why you see me going back to these Golos package. Even with the Golos package, this, I think it was Cascade Cataract or something like that, that the World Tree is replacing. It's all, pieced together in a really fun way. You grab tons of cards into tons of different spots. And overall, it's a really fun and enjoyable deck. If you like ramp decks, I highly recommend trying this one. There's so many synergies going on. There's also tons of room, I find, in this deck, to kind of explode. In all honesty, you get to 10 mana pretty easily. I could see playing an Ulamog in the main again. It's something that I've tried. I tried 4 Grazer at one point that I was pretty happy with if you wanted to play more lands and more grazers to kind of, do more things. Grazer has actually overperformed for me in this format, so it could be something that you want to play a lot more lands to get to 10 mana. And once you have things like the Eldrazi coming into the format, that might be a direction that you can kind of go back to. But overall, I think that this mono green deck is really fun. There are a ton of synergies that just you get to unlock pretty quickly. Kiora getting to untap Wolfwillow Haven or untap Castle Garenbrig is a fun one. I have used it to untap Blast Zone to put an extra counter on Blast Zone or to crack the Blast Zone. I've used it to draw extra cards. Same thing with Nissa doing that. She also can untap those lands. Also, just being able to give some of your creatures vigilance in key spots such as Voracious Hydra. Just tons of things going on in this deck that I think is really enjoyable, and I highly recommend people check it out. I posted a poll on Twitter and I asked people, does Explorer make you want to innovate and pioneer? And for me, the answer is actually yes. And it was funny because the answer was surprisingly more yeses than I even thought that I would get. I think that Explorer, while less powerful, makes you think about your deck more and makes you think about things that you might not have thought about if you were just grabbing a stock list and kind of moving it over from one format to the other. And I really like that. So if you like some of the things that we talked about here, if you have any questions, thoughts, leave a comment. It really helps the YouTube channel. Smash that like button, and don't forget to check out the rest of the network from Common Knowledge, Drafting Archetypes. Every show is available to you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for another video here on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel.